I'm a big fan of the soundtrack to the movie, especially Don Cherry, and obviously this is kind of a loaded subject because of the whole background, music in the film. Instead of a specific question, I was wondering if I could invite you to talk about what the process was in commissioning it, for Jodorowky or for whoever was involved.
Okay, well, we did the music in New York. Alan Klein was our distributor, and he was the Beatles manager. Then he became the Rolling Stones manager after that. We had, Alejandro wrote the music with Don Cherry and Ron Frangipani, and we recorded the music in a studio, a sound studio in New York. Of course, Don Cherry is a famous jazz musician. Probably some people or many people don't know who he is, but he was a great musician. I don't know if that answered your question.
Was Jodorowsky listening to that kind of stuff?
To that kind of music?
Yeah, it was like world, there's things like electronics with jazz and post-Beatles stuff.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how he chose. We never really talked about it. I was there, I'll say that. I was there for a recording. But I don't recall exactly how he chose the musicians. You're welcome, thank you.
I've got a question over here.
Yeah, hi Bob. First of all, what the fuck just happened? Is
that you, George?
Yeah, that's me. I'm completely sober. I feel like I just took ayahuasca.
Yeah.
Yo, it threw off on the fucking window. Alright, so, what was the budget for this film, and how does that translate into today's dollars?
Right, that's a good question. Well, this was done in 72, 73. The budget was, I think, $900,000, if I recall. But there's a very interesting story about that. As was mentioned at the beginning, I'm writing a book. They've asked me to write a book on the making of the Holy Mountain, and about halfway through the film, the original producer ran out of money. He was the producer. His name was Roberto Viskin, and this was in Mexico, and he produced El Topo, which was not the first, but Alejandro's second film actually, but the one that really brought him to international recognition. And a little bit more of that background. What happened was that John Lennon and Yoko went to the Elgin Theater in New York. It's not there anymore, but they went to see El Topo, and John Lennon fell in love with the film and went to Alan Klein, who was then the Beatles manager, and asked him to buy the rights to El Topo and to take it from an underground film and distribute it worldwide, which he did. And then Alan Klein funded The Holy Mountain. But what Roberto Viskin, who was the original producer of the Holy Mountain, he started 3 other films at the same time in Mexico, thinking that he was going to get all this money from El Topo, which he was getting, and then Klein basically cut him off at a certain point, and he ran out of money, and we wound up in New York for about 4 weeks, negotiating with Alan Klein to get the rest of the money to finish the film. And Viskin was basically destroyed by the process. It was really something incredible to see, but because he was dealing with some really tough characters. And after about 4 weeks of this, I volunteered, because we weren't getting anywhere, I volunteered to raise the money to finish the film, and which I did, and that's how I became the producer of the film. So that's a kind of a long answer to a short question.
Okay, we got a question over here.
So, initial budget problems aside, what was the, I guess, most challenging part of the production?
I would say the last part, the it was very arduous, particularly the mountain climbing, because that was real. And they had to climb every morning and then come down every night because they weren't staying up there, but each day they had to go further and further up into the mountain. It was Ixtaccíhuatl. There are two mountains outside of Mexico City. Some people may know Ixtaccíhuatl and Popocatépetl. And so that was, I would say that was the most arduous part of the film physically. But also working with Alejandro was difficult at times because he's a taskmaster. He's very, very exacting, and especially then when he was younger, and well, he still is. But some of the actors had problems with. Well, actually, there was a training before the film. I don't know if any of you read about this, but there was a man by the name of Oscar Ichazo who had a Rica Institute started in Chile. Actually, he was from Chile, and so was Alejandro. And so Oscar Ichazo was invited down to Mexico City to do a training with Alejandro and the seven principal characters, and among other things, they took psychedelics during it. And if you were the last scene in the pyramids, when they had all the dust and there was a ceremony, everyone was had eaten mushrooms that morning. I could tell a little side story about that if you want to hear it. The person who played Axon, the chief of police, the soldier, he and I were assigned the job the day before of going up into the mountains to find the mushrooms, and we had some information, some directions. We had a car, and we were in Oaxaca. And we drove up into the mountains, and about halfway up the mountain to the other side, we stopped in a little village. I think it was called San Jose Pacifico. And when we got there was nothing but just dirt. It was just huts, basically, and there were no roads. And we went in there and negotiated for the purchase of enough magic psilocybin mushrooms for the next day's shooting. The only problem was when by the time Richard and I got back to Oaxaca, we were totally loaded. We had to go back and see Jodorowky and give him the mushrooms, and he took one look at us, and he was really furious. He was really, really furious. But that's a true story. And then the next day, everyone who was supposed to be taking the mushrooms, not including me, so that day, the entire day was filmed. Everybody was high on mushrooms. So, just a little side light.
Yeah, this is kind of just a curious question. On IMDb, it says you're the dialogue consultant.
Does it on this film?
No, on IMDb for Sante Sangre.
Oh, for Santa Sangre, yes.
Yeah.
I was involved with Santa Sangre with the dialogue. Yes.
Yeah, I was curious what that actually means. And
Well,
what's the story behind
in
it.
this case, I have to say that I was very honored by the fact that Alejandro called me on his next two films and asked me to come and work with him. Santa Sangre being the first, and then the second was The Rainbow Thief in London. That was very interesting. That was with Peter O'Toole and Omar Sharif, and also Christopher Lee, if anyone knows Christopher Lee. So that was another very interesting story. But on Santa Sangre, he asked me to translate the script, and he asked me to work with the actors on dialogue, and that's pretty much what I did. I wasn't producing. He had Claudio Argento, the Italian. I always forget which one is.
Dario Argento's brother. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I did work on the film. It was also in Mexico City, and then the other, Rainbow Thief was in London at Shepperton Studios. That was very interesting, working with Peter O'Toole and Omar Sharif. Has anyone seen Jodorowsky's Dune,
Oh, yeah.
the documentary? haven't, but anyone, I really strongly recommend that you see it, and it's great. It's about Jodorowsky's attempt to make Dune, the film from the great Frank Herbert science fiction novel. And I was involved for a little while, but then he didn't get all the financing, and it fell apart. And then David Lynch got a hold of it and made the film, and the film was terrible. And, but at any rate, Jodorowsky's Dune is an incredible documentary, and it's really, really interesting portrayal of Jodorowsky in the documentary. I'd recommend it. I did want to say something before I forget, because I am very forgetful. There's before the film, there was a Kickstarter campaign